The reunion hall was a sea of glitter and cheap champagne, with bad 80s music blaring from the speakers. I barely took a step inside before a wave of laughter hit me, sharp and aimed. Well, if it isn't Alex Secondhand Johnson. Mark's voice boomed. He leaned against the bar, thicker now, but with the same smug grin plastered on his face. Surprised you could afford the ticket, he sneered, gesturing at my simple blazer. His sycophants erupted on cue. A hot flash of old humiliation washed over me for a second, but it was instantly doused by the cold, exhilarating knowledge of what was to come. I held their gazes and offered a quiet, unreadable smile. They had no idea they were performing for their new, silent owner. Their careers now rested in my hands. High school was a brutal caste system, and I was an untouchable. While Mark and his wealthy friends coasted on legacy and privilege, I was the scholarship kid, the nerdy outcast who spent lunches in the library to avoid the constant barrage of taunts. They mocked my worn-out shoes, my secondhand textbooks, my very ambition. Their cruelty was a sport, and I was their favorite game. While they were inheriting their futures, I was quietly building mine from scratch in my bedroom, learning to code until my eyes burned, fueled by little more than instant noodles and a burning desire to prove them all wrong. After graduation, they walked into cushy management track jobs at Innovatech, the city's largest tech firm, a company where Mark's father was a prominent board member. It was their playground. My path was steeper. I founded Nexus Dynamics in a cramped garage, bootstrapping it with every dollar I could earn from freelance coding gigs. For 10 years, my life was a relentless cycle of 18-hour workdays, chasing venture capital and overcoming obstacles that would have crushed a less determined person. My breakthrough came with Synapse, a revolutionary logistics AI that became the industry standard. While my old tormentors were climbing the corporate ladder one predictable rung at a time, my company was silently growing into a giant. 2 weeks ago, in a move that went completely under the radar, Nexus Dynamics finalized the acquisition of a struggling Innovatech. The board was replaced. New leadership was appointed, reporting directly to an owner whose identity remained a closely guarded secret. That owner is me. This reunion isn't a social call. It's a final observation before I restructure their entire world. The cheap champagne in my glass felt like a prop. I let the initial wave of laughter from Mark's table wash over me, a familiar, grating sound from a past I had worked so hard to escape. My lack of reaction, the absence of the flustered shame he expected, clearly unnerved him. His jokes weren't landing. He needed a bigger reaction. He pushed himself off the bar and sauntered over, his two main lieutenants, Kevin and Josh, falling into formation on either side of him. They looked like older, paunchier versions of their high school selves. "What's the matter, Alex? Cat got your tongue?" Mark pressed, his voice loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "Or are you just remembering all the good times? Like senior year when you tried to ask Sarah Miller to prom. God, that was classic. You, in that powder blue rented tux, stammering like an idiot while she just laughed in your face." The cronies howled, their laughter echoing in the hall. The memory was a sharp sting, but 10 years of discipline had taught me control. I took a slow sip of my flat, sparkling water. "I remember, Mark," I said, my voice even and calm. "It was a valuable lesson in public humiliation. Almost as valuable as the lesson you learned when you failed your final calculus exam and your father had to make a very generous donation to the school's library fund just to make sure you graduated with the rest of us." A collective gasp went through the small crowd that was now listening. Mark's jaw tightened, a vein pulsing in his temple. He wasn't used to being challenged. "You always were a little snake, weren't you?" He spat. "Hiding in the library, scribbling in your little notebooks. Still living in your mom's basement, I bet, coding for pennies. Things never changed." He puffed out his chest, adjusting his tie. "I, on the other hand, am Senior Vice President of Sales at Innovatech. I just landed a deal that will secure our entire quarter. I'm a shot caller in the biggest tech firm in this city. What have you ever done that matters?" It was perfect. He was serving his head on a silver platter. I let a small, genuine smile touch my lips. "Innovatech? That's interesting," I said, tilting my head. "I've been following them. Aren't they the company that's been bleeding cash for 3 consecutive quarters? The one whose flagship product is built on a legacy tech stack that's a nightmare to maintain?" I heard their stock price is in absolute free fall and they're desperate for a buyout. The blood drained from Mark's face. Kevin and Josh looked like they'd seen a ghost. This wasn't just gossip. These were specific, damning details that were only being discussed in frantic, closed-door board meetings. How? How the hell would you know any of that? Mark stammered, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. That's confidential. Before I could answer, a warm voice cut through the tension. Alex? I thought that was you. It was Jessica, a classmate who had always offered me a kind word when no one else would. She beamed at me. It's so wonderful to see you. I've been following your career. I read that huge profile on you in Wired. Nexus Dynamics is revolutionary. What you've built is just incredible. The name dropped like a bomb into the silence. Nexus Dynamics. The name of the mysterious, hyper-aggressive company that analysts had been whispering about for months. The one known for hostile takeovers of struggling firms. Mark stared at me, his mouth slightly agape, his face a kaleidoscope of confusion, disbelief, and dawning, gut-wrenching horror. His brain was working furiously, trying to connect the impossible dots between the pathetic loser he'd bullied for years and the unseen, ruthless titan who now held his entire future in his hands. The party hadn't just quieted down. It had stopped. Everyone was watching us. The name Nexus Dynamics hung in the air, thick and heavy. Every eye in the room was on me. Mark's face had gone from sickly pale to a blotchy, uneven red. His mouth opened and closed silently, like a fish gasping for air. He looked from Jessica back to me, his eyes wide with a terror that was immensely satisfying to watch. Nexus? Dynamics? He finally managed to choke out, the words barely a whisper. That's your company? I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment I had replayed in my mind 1,000 times over the last decade. I took a deliberate step forward, closing the small distance between us. The crowd instinctively parted, creating a small arena around us. Yes, Mark? I said, my voice no longer quiet but clear and resonant, carrying across the silent hall. It's my company. The one I built while you were coasting on your father's name. The one whose software made your entire sales division obsolete. And, as of 2 weeks ago, it's the company that owns Innovatech. Every last share. A collective, audible gasp rippled through the onlookers. But I was focused on Mark. The bravado, the arrogance, the smug superiority. It all melted away in an instant, replaced by a raw, pathetic panic. He looked at Kevin and Josh, his lieutenants, but they were staring at me with the same slack-jawed horror, their own futures flashing before their eyes. He was alone. Owns. Innovatech? He stammered, shaking his head in frantic denial. No, that's impossible. You're a nobody. You're Alex Johnson. It was a desperate, childish plea, as if saying my name, the name he had ridiculed for years, could magically undo reality. I am Alex Johnson. I confirmed, stepping even closer, my voice dropping to a low, intense tone for his ears only. And you are Mark Reynolds, Senior Vice President of Sales, who just boasted about landing a deal to secure the quarter. The problem is, I've seen the real numbers on that deal. It's a house of cards, propped up by channel stuffing and promising features your tech team can't deliver for another 2 years. You didn't secure the quarter. You mortgaged the company's future for a single, meaningless commission check. His face went white. This was a secret he thought was buried deep within Innovatech's servers. My first order of business as the new owner, I said, raising my voice again for everyone to hear, is a full, top-to-bottom audit of all departments. Starting with sales, we need to see who's been adding value and who's been dead weight. I looked past him, at Kevin and Josh, who flinched as if struck. I'll be in the office at 8 a.m. on Monday. I suggest you all be there. We have a lot to discuss. I held his terrified gaze for a final, long moment, then turned my back on him without another word, leaving him standing alone in a circle of silence, the king of high school dethroned and utterly broken. The Innovatech office on Monday morning was a morgue. The usual hum of keyboards and coffee machines was replaced by a tense, suffocating silence. Whispers died the moment I stepped out of the elevator. I wasn't wearing a cheap blazer now. I was in a tailored navy suit that cost more than Mark's car. I walked through the open plan office, my footsteps echoing on the polished concrete floor. People stared, their faces a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. They recognized me. I didn't go to the CEO's office. Instead, I walked directly to the large glass-walled conference room and instructed HR to summon all senior staff. 15 minutes later, the room was full. Mark, Kevin, and Josh sat at the far end of the long table, looking like men on death row. They hadn't slept. Their eyes were bloodshot, their expensive suits crumpled. I stood at the head of the table. Good morning, I began, my voice calm and collected. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex Johnson. I am the founder and CEO of Nexus Dynamics, and as of last week, the new owner of this company. I let that sink in. Nexus Dynamics was built on three principles: innovation, efficiency, and integrity. These are the principles that will now govern Innovatech. For too long, this company has relied on its brand name while its technology has stagnated and its culture has favored connections over competence. That is going to change starting today. My eyes scanned the room before landing on Mark. Let's start with sales. I was informed by the former SVP, Mr. Reynolds, that he had just secured a major deal. A deal supposedly so significant it would save the quarter. I paused, then gestured to the large screen on the wall. A complex spreadsheet appeared. This is that deal. And after a weekend of analysis by my team, I can tell you it is a complete and utter fraud. I walked the room through the numbers, my voice sharp and precise. I pointed out the inflated projections, the promises of non existent features, and the deep, unsustainable discounts designed to get a signature at any cost. I showed them how it wasn't a win, but a ticking time bomb of future losses and client dissatisfaction that would have crippled the company's reputation next year. This wasn't a sale. I concluded, my voice cold as ice. This was an act of corporate sabotage, driven by personal greed and a desperate attempt to create the illusion of performance. I turned off the screen and looked directly at Mark. His face was ashen. Mr. Reynolds, your tenure at this company is a case study in coasting on privilege. You have fostered a culture of cronyism and delivered zero net value. Your final act was to nearly cripple the company you claimed to serve for a single commission check. Your employment at Innovatech is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. He just stared, speechless. Then I turned my gaze to his two lieutenants. Mr. Davies, I said to Kevin, and Mr. Peterson to Josh. As his closest deputies, you were complicit in this. My audit shows a long history of you both signing off on inflated expense reports, claiming credit for the work of junior employees, and contributing to a toxic work environment. Your positions are also redundant. Your employment is terminated. Please collect your personal belongings. Security guards, who had been waiting discreetly by the door, stepped forward. They didn't touch them, but their presence was an undeniable finality. The three of them stood up, their bodies stiff with shock and humiliation. The entire room watched in stunned silence as the former kings of the office were unceremoniously led away, stripped of their power and their pride. As they walked past me, Mark shot me a look of pure, impotent hatred. I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. I felt nothing. No joy, no anger. Just the quiet, clean satisfaction of a long overdue equation finally being solved. I had not only changed my fate, I had corrected a flaw in the system. The payback was complete. After security escorted them away, the silence in the room finally broke. Not with applause, but with the quiet, collective exhale of people who had been holding their breath for years. I saw junior employees exchange small, hopeful smiles. I turned to the remaining staff. The real work begins now, I said, my voice losing its hard edge. Innovatech has good people and good ideas that were stifled. My door is open. I want to hear those ideas. Let's build something real together. Walking to my new office, the one that used to be Mark's father's. I looked out over the city. The past was finally where it belonged, behind me. The future was here, and it was mine to build.